All right. We're going to talk today about two different kinds of sentences. So there are actually only 4 kinds of sentences in English. And guess what? I speak French. There are only 4 kinds of sentences in French as well. And probably French is really similar to Spanish. I would say there are probably only 4 types of sentences in Spanish. So we're going to talk about 2 kinds of sentences. We learned last week that all sentences have to have a subject and a predicate. And now we're going to look at sentences that have those things. So the first 2 sentences we're going to look at are declarative sentences and interrogative sentences. And I'm going to put my name at the top first of this paper. And I'm going to tell you that declarative sentences usually end with a period. So I'm going to draw a little period right up here by declarative to remind me that I'm going to be using a period as my end punctuation. So declarative sentences almost always end in a period. They're the most simple, basic sentences that exist in the English language. And then we also have interrogative, and that is a sentence that's going to end in a question mark always. So we have 2 different types of sentences. There are really 4 types of sentences, but we're only going to talk about the first 2 right now. So a declarative sentence just ends in a period. It has a subject and a predicate. It's just a simple sentence. An interrogative sentence ends in a question mark. So interrogative, you've probably heard of the word interrogate, right? If somebody gets captured, let's say you're a spy and you get captured, you might get interrogated, which means that they're just going to ask you lots of questions. So interrogative means question sentences, right? So a sentence that makes a statement is a declarative sentence. I'm going to underline that part right here. Actually, I'm going to circle it. So a declarative sentence makes a statement. A sentence that asks a question, I'm going to circle that, asks a question, is an interrogative sentence. It ends with a question mark. Every sentence has to start with a capital letter, right? That's just the rule. So let's look at these 2 examples. Declarative sentence, Martin Luther King Jr. There actually should be a comma after King. Martin Luther King Jr. gave many speeches. That ends in a period because it's a declarative sentence. Here's our subject, Martin Luther King Jr., and our predicate is gave many speeches. Just a simple, basic declarative sentence. It's declaring that he gave many speeches. An interrogative sentence example is, what did you learn about Dr. King? So we're asking a question. It's starting with a question word. Questions don't always have to start with a question word, but here's a big clue that it is a question if it does. And we end our interrogative sentence with a question mark. Okay? So we're going to look at a few examples and we're going to work together on that. Again, I apologize. Normally in class, if you were doing this, we would do it together. We would throw around a stuffed animal called the grammar groundhog. We'd work with partners. But because I'm here alone and you're at your house alone, we're just going to kind of do it together. Maybe what we'll do is I'll do one and then you'll do the other one and then we'll check it, okay? To spice it up a little bit. So let's do the first one together. We're going to add the correct end punctuation and we're going to write whether each sentence is declarative or interrogative. And we're going to make sure we spell declarative interrogative correctly. They are right here for us to look at. Also, they're right up here at the top of the paper in huge letters. So if you spell it wrong, I'm going to think you're a nitwit because it's right here in front of you. Okay? Same thing with me. If I spell it wrong, that's not cool. So I'm going to always check. Let's do the first one together. Dr. King gave a famous speech in 1963. That looks declarative to me. There's no question being asked. So I'm going to put a period. and I'm going to write declarative. Oops, the lights just went out. And I'm going to make sure that I'm spelling declarative correctly, so I'm just double checking, and I've underlined it so I can quickly double check. Okay? All right, you're going to do the next ones. Were the words "I have a dream" in the speech? I'll pause so that you can write it in. All right, so I am seeing "were the words" in the speech. That signals a question to me. If I were to say it out loud, I would say, "Were the words 'I have a dream' in the speech?" And my voice would go up in the speech. So I know that it is a question. And I also know that it's interrogative. Okay, I'll do the next one. We'll do number 3. Have you ever read the speech? That sounds like a question. Have you ever read the speech? And my voice goes up. So that sounds like a question. And the answer to that is yes, I have read the speech. I have a whole book with the speech in it that I share with my class every year. So we're going to say that's interrogative. All right, you're going to do the next one. The occasion was a march in Washington. I'll give you a couple of seconds to fill it in. All right, hopefully you filled in period and declarative. All right, we'll do the next one together. At least 2 million people were there. That sounds like just a basic sentence to me. It's not a question. So I'm going to say it's declarative. Okay, you're going to do the next one. All right. If I were doing this one, I notice the question word right off the bat. Sometimes questions don't have question words though, so you can't get too hooked up on seeing that, but I'm seeing a question word, so I know it's going to be a question. What was the speech about? So it's interrogative. All right. Number 7, how did listeners respond to the speech? That is definitely a question. Here's my question word right there. Okay. You're doing the next one. Dr. King spoke of his dreams of freedom. Okay, so if I were doing this one, I would say Dr. King spoke of his dreams of freedom. That sounds like just a basic declarative sentence. Okay, next one we do together. Do you think a speech can change history? Here's a sort of the start of a question. Do you, right? And so definitely interrogative. And yes, I do think a speech can change history. There are many famous speeches that have changed history. His speech that he gave during the March on Washington is one of the most famous speeches in the history of speech making. So it's kind of important to read it so that you can know why it's famous and why it's important. All right. Last one you're doing on your own. So many said it was the best speech of 20th century America. That is not a question. It's just a simple statement. So now you know that there are 4 types of sentences, lucky 4, and 2 of them that we talked about today are declarative and interrogative. It's important that you know this because you're going to be writing. You're going to be writing lots of reports in our class this year, and you're going to be taking lots of notes and writing lots of information. And when you're writing, it's important to know what you're doing, right? Just like if you were building with Legos, there are different colors and sizes of Legos. Well, writing a paragraph is like building with Legos. You have different tools, different pieces to write your paragraph. And so 2 of the tools that you have for writing your paragraph is an interrogative sentence and a declarative sentence. Sometimes you can ask questions in your writing, and sometimes you can just make simple statements. All right, I hope that was really clear for you and that you learned about declarative and interrogative sentences. Thanks for listening.